Hey, good morning, everyone. Beautiful day here today, and we have finally arrived. We are at the final chapter of our book series, and that is Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. So it's been a long journey for myself to get this completed, but we did complete it at the end of the day. If you're seeing me for the first time and you're kind of like, who the hell am I? What's going on here? So my name's Nick Leitch. I am the creator of the Life with Nick YouTube channel and the host of the Life with Nick podcast. My channel is predicated on really two things. I love podcasting with very interesting everyday people. I love to give voice to everyday people just because I think they got cool stories to tell. And then on the book series side of things, I am a big advocate of personal development. And so I take personal development books, I break them down, I talk about kind of the important messages behind what the author's trying to say and my own interpretation. So just for those that have been following along, I don't want to waste too much time here. So if you want to go over to my YouTube channel, check out the introduction video. It will give you a whole layout and in detail of what I am, who I am, and if I am for you. If I am, would love for you to subscribe. If not, don't want to waste your time, but I appreciate you checking me out. So for those that have been reading along, we finally made it. It's chapter 15. Hoorah, hoorah. This has been great. We've talked a lot in this book about improving our self-image. We've talked a lot about learning kind of how to leverage our past. We've talked about how to set and achieve worthwhile goals, the failure mechanism, the success mechanism, servo mechanisms, all this stuff, kind of how we're wired. And finally, we get to the ending of the book, which Dr. Maltz has addressed in some ways as this kind of cherry on top in the sense of adding more years to our life and getting more out of the years that we do have in life. So we'll dive right in here just to conclude on a positive note, and then we'll get wrapped up. So essentially, as we have concluded our last chapter in discussing the winning feeling, the power of generating winning feelings, and the power of momentum, we kind of have an uplifting message here. And thank you again for joining me on this book series. I greatly appreciate it. Excited to dive into more content down the road. What we're essentially talking about here is balancing maximizing our time on Earth with living more stress-free in our years to give us more time on Earth, if you will. And so when we think about, hold on just one second, this got flipped around just a little bit. So when we think about the terms of success mechanism and failure mechanism as they've been thrown around, we're going to look at this in kind of a different light today. And there's two questions that I pose. So, well, I guess he posed them in the book, but just as a point of, starting here. So can the success mechanism keep you young is the first. And then does the failure mechanism accelerate the aging process? So in general, I would agree with these questions, right? When we have goals, when we're pursuing goals, achieving goals, and using some of the other tactics in this book to succeed along the journey of doing that, I do think that life keeps us fresh, young, and sharp when we're in pursuit of the things that we want to, that we're excited about. On the contrary, if we are failing a lot and we're living in a constant state of stress, life can be extremely miserable. And that, I do think, can age us in some way, shape, or form. So ultimately, what creates and maintains vitality in life, as we've found, is having a sense of direction. Now, these are just kind of points in terms of me being able to kind of hit reminders here before we dive into the main premise of this video. But just as a quick reminder, wanted to hit that. So a future goal or project we're working towards, that just kind of gives us this vitality. The bigger the project or goal, the more engaged we can be in making this to become a reality if we are committed. If we don't have at least something that we're working towards or wanting to pursue, we begin to kind of get comfortable, we get a little soft, we begin to just kind of drift through our day-to-day and our week-to-week, and life can really fly by in that particular context. So when we begin to drift, that's when we get bored, complacent, time starts wasting away. So that's kind of the high-level overview of some of the book. Outside of the self-image piece is that when we're in pursuit, we're thriving as we were designed to thrive. When we are not, we are drifting, we get bored, we get complacent, soft, and all that stuff. So this chapter is going to be structured unlike other chapters in the sense that Dr. Maltz shares some of his personal beliefs about life, about psycho-cybernetics. So he originally wrote this book as a medical doctor, and he still is, obviously. But he specifically states that in this last chapter, he wanted to step out of that light and just say, hey, I'm a man, I've seen a lot in life. Here are some of the beliefs that I have about life, knowing what I've seen. And so we're essentially just hearing that. I'm delivering some of that and delivering that value. Your job is to hear the belief, think if it's true, use it as you so choose, and just kind of be mindful of the fact that it's a very successful individual, and generally people that succeed in one area of life can have good, productive philosophies in other areas of life. And so we're going to go ahead and dive in here. So belief number 1. So Dr. Maltz says, I believe the essence of people is to animate, direct, and control that which is our machine. We are both an operating machine and a conductor of our machine. So essentially we learned earlier in this book that there's a lot of similarities between humans and machines, hence Psycho-Cybernetics. Okay? And so whether we agree upon this or not, if we can decide to believe in it and look at our lives through that lens, we have kind of a new perspective on how we operate both in our mind and in our body. So, getting more into this, we're not machines, of course, but taking some time to identify and separate where we're machine-like and where we're not, I do think is quite relevant. So, if we are machine-like, in another book that I would throw in here, it's called The Power of Habit, it kind of addresses some of this stuff. How do we best operate our machine, right? That's the first question that I kind of thought of is, if we truly are machine-like, what are the advantages of being machine-like? The second is, now that we know maybe and explore maybe how we operate, how can we make that work to our benefit? So if this is inherently true, how do we use that to live a more fruitful life? And then the second piece is, if I am the operator and conductor of my own machine, how do I become a better driver of that machine? So we're first identifying that we are particularly in this belief. How do we learn it? How do we work it to our benefit? And then how do we as the conductor become a better driver? These are some thoughts that I had on this belief. So as stated earlier, we are goal-striving beings. That's when we're operating at our best. Whether small goals, mid-size, or large, that's when we're engaged in a pursuit of something. We naturally want to lock into having a purpose, a project to excel at, something that is calling to us. So first, recognize that our priority is realizing we can be machine-like and use this to our advantage in the sense of power of habit towards the habits that help us achieve our goals and having goals as well. But then with that, how well are we directing ourselves to where we want to be? And I'm going to say that one more time, and this is me taking a step back from this whole picture that we've just touched on a little bit. So overall, how well are we directing ourselves where we want to go? Okay, so that was the first belief that Doctor talked on that I thought was really strong. Belief number 2, and this is very unique to this chapter, is called adaptive energy. So throughout life, we're basically facing daily stresses. The process of living itself, as he writes, constitutes as a stress. There are good stresses like cold exposure, fasting, sauna, that invoke positive responses from our body to defend itself. And then with that, there's also negative stresses like illness, physical impairments, and challenges where our body is simply fighting to survive. So bear with me a little bit as I lay this out. Now, when we're fighting through positive stresses and voluntarily being in positive stresses, we build resiliency and a healthy life quality, because when we go do hard things and succeed at them, it gives us this huge reward system of, hey, we made it through that, and now we're kind of more mentally tough because of it. And so we're doing all of that to create what this is called as adaptive energy. So as we age and live through stress, we can develop this adaptive energy, which can help us live longer. So kind of hitting on the premise of the chapter saying, sometimes when we go through stress that we don't want, but also put ourselves in stress that is good for us, we get a little bit of an extra edge, an extra gear that we can lean on, which can help us live longer. Living through hard times creates mental fortitude, and fortitude can be called upon in times when we really need it. Again, an extra gear and mindset can provide us this adaptive energy to live our life. Perspective of knowing good pleasures in life versus knowing what really challenges us also helps us when we need to tap into this adaptive energy source. When we know pain and suffering and real pain and suffering, we appreciate the pleasures of life much more. So to look and feel younger and sharp, voluntarily, routinely kind of giving yourself these stresses can help when the negative stuff shows up. A life of pleasure is only enjoyable until adversity shows up. So I share this belief because I do think this is inherently true, and you can kind of see it as you're training for as simple as a 5K or something that physically challenges you, right? When you're physically challenged, if you think you can do it or you can't, you go through the experience, you do get to the end of the result, and with that, you get more kind of mental, again, fortitude to lean on to get through hard times. So with that, the other part is all humans have an energy to them, right? In a basic sense, we eat food, we gather energy. When we sleep, we gather energy. Yet some people in our lives will know have just a little bit more vitality and grit and mental toughness. And this is because they're really kind of leaning on this adaptive energy that they developed through the course of their life. So if you don't feel like you have this adaptive energy, then maybe you need to challenge yourself a little bit more in these kind of positive stresses to get more of this kind of reserve of human resiliency, adaptation, grit, all this good stuff. These are all really good purposes to, again, get more out of our years, but also live longer and happier. Belief number 3 is the power of people, social connection. So he wrote about this a little bit in this chapter. I won't go too crazy here, but people essentially are what amplify our life force. The need for love, the need for security, creative expression, recognition, new experiences, and self-esteem. All of that stuff is not possible unless we interact with people. So not going to go into a whole thing here, but I think the belief of him leveraging the power of people and social connection is why we do what we do. So we have the first belief, we're machine-like at times and we're not machine-like at other times. Belief number 2, adaptive energy, how to kind of get more energy out of life by putting ourselves in good times and in bad and surviving those things. All of this stuff before and after are because we're going out into the world and interacting with people along the way. We are communal creatures and we need people. And so that will be just the final point that I share on that. But that's just kind of the overarching theme here is as we engage with people, we get more out of people because of some of these interactions, which is great. The next couple here are going to be a little bit unique if this is the first time you're hearing some of this stuff. So I'll take my time and kind of address things head on here. So belief 4 is creativity, a need for more life. So another ingredient that aids us in looking younger and feeling younger is creativity. And creativity is creation energy. When we create, we're operating at the highest level, and that's both men and women. When we're creative, it helps us kind of tap into the source and have a little bit more spark in our life. So even if you're someone that is analytically minded and you don't like creative work or you don't feel like you've ever been creative, just in general, creating or helping facilitate or coming up with new ideas or what have you, that's just going to give you a little bit more color to life. And then for those that are in the creative space, in whatever way you want to take it, that is why you feel so engaged when you are pursuing your creative ideas, is because this is how we were designed. We were designed to literally generate from the source and create what it is that we think is really cool or for a work-related function. So if you feel like you're not creative or if you feel like you haven't kind of tapped into your full resources, maybe this is a place that you look and say, hey, when was the last time I created something? When was the last time I designed something? When was the last time I painted or used clay sculptures or whatever you want to coin, making content? That creativity can give us a purpose, and it can be a really fun project to kind of keep us feeling younger and sharp. And then the last belief that he put out here is a more high-level piece as far as his belief, and that is retire from a job but never retire from life. So this is kind of going further down the road here, but the concept is good. So many people go downhill rapidly after retirement, and the reason that is they feel kind of like their active, productive life is complete and their job is done. They don't have anything to look forward to, and they can become bored and inactive. And with this, people suffer a loss of self-esteem because they feel like they're not going and doing anything. So this is why people need projects and things to constantly be engaging with, because when we have nothing, right? And I'm talking like you're retired, you're done with some of these things, or you just don't feel like you're really engaged a lot. This is a dangerous place to be, because as you're being retired from life, so to speak, and not engaged, your self-image becomes that of useless, worthless, and worn out. And that's why I think that a lot of people do not well in retirement, because they just don't have anything that they're engaging in. Our system needs this. We're goal-striving beings. We're creative beings. We need times and places and projects to be and enjoy and put the work in, because that's what kind of keeps us operating. That isn't to say go out and take a vacation, and if you're going to take a vacation, you're going to totally come unglued. No, we need rest, we need recovery. But in general, if we don't have something that's kind of getting us going, this can be a reason why. Let's see here. Awesome. So this is a personal note for me, and then I'll also put a personal philosophy in here as well. So I personally believe, and this is me at 29 saying this, so this could be right, could be wrong, that life is actually supposed to get better as we age. Age is merely a point of reference. It's a mark that society gives us that says, hey, we're supposed to do things at this particular time. So yes, we do need ages like 16, 18, 21 from a law perspective of when we're able to drive, serve in the military, when we're able to consume alcohol. That's totally fine. However, once you get to like 25 on, there's really no more of a label. And this is where people can get caught drifting, because they don't think that they have anything that they're working towards or that they're engaging in. So just because society says as we get older, we're supposed to wither away and we're supposed to cognitively, dip, or whatever the case is, I just don't believe that's true. I think that as we're engaging more in Psycho-Cybernetics, other personal development books over here, we get more mentally sharp. And if we take care of our body, we get more physically adapted, take care of our diet, we just feel better about ourselves. We're supposed to get better as we age, not worse, because the body gets better at engaging in these practices over time. So again, that's just me kind of riffing, because I think that is a huge thing. People just kind of fall into this trap of, oh, I'm this age, so I'm supposed to be this, or I'm this age, and I'm supposed to be that. It's like, in some ways, that's not true. There's no one imposing these things on you. So if you're someone hearing this, and let's say you're 37 or you're 42 or whatever, and you feel like all your best years are behind you, I would challenge you to say the best years need to be ahead of you, and in pursuit of becoming the best physical version and mental version and emotional version. This is what is supposed to give us that lifespan of 25 to 65 of constantly getting better in some way, shape, or form. So that's my encouragement to you, is to start looking at a new perspective and saying, no, just because we're older, that does not mean that you're just supposed to wither away. And then just in general, activity, movement, creative projects, adventures, all these things help us feel young and sharp and engaged. And so feeling washed up, that is a myth, I think. If you take care of your body, your mind, and your soul, and continue to improve in life, age is something to look forward to. We get better with age. Excellent. Okay, now we're rounding out the final chapter in this book series, and we're going to hammer on a really good piece, and then we'll get you guys out of here. So just before we get into the final piece, this is some notes that I wrote in continuing the thought process we were just working on. So long-term effects of habits relating to health and wellness and having consistency in the physical and the soul and the mind, all these things build mental fortitude, like we were talking earlier. So if you're not in the best shape of your life in these different areas, and I know you can't be maxing out at all times with everything, now's the time to engage in that stuff. Your older self will thank you right now for taking care of yourself in the future. In the future, your older self will appreciate you taking action right now. So if you're 30, your 40-year-old self will appreciate the work that you do now. If you're 50, your 70-year-old version of yourself will appreciate what you're doing right now. So just, again, kind of think of the context of, as we get older, we should be getting better, and our older version of ourself will thank ourselves right now for taking action on the things that we want to take action on. We should look to become more impenetrable as we age and not break down. How we get to a place of weakness is allowing poor habits to creep in and take us over. One in particular of that is immobilization. So this is why I'm such an advocate of physical training, and that can be a whole slew of things, right? But essentially, the more immobile we are, the worse off that we're going to be in our health, because we are animals at the end of the day. We are animals at the end of the day. And when we're animals and movement and activity, this means life. So we've already talked about being in pursuit. We've already talked about going after goals and how that engages us. When we're doing that, we're in movement. Okay. So if you're someone feeling stuck, you may just need to lean on more movement, more activity, more purpose. This is kind of another way of looking at why we're looking at self-image, because as you improve your self-image, you're going to want to engage more in life. And that's what keeps us feeling young and getting more max out of our years here. And then the last point is expecting to get old unconsciously just as we age sets up a negative image for our creative mechanism. So we become less creative when we think we're just old and washed up and don't have purpose. Envisioning health is the common goal, and it is our primary goal. We want health, we want wealth, we want all of these strong pillars. And when we, again, expect to get old, we can kind of wither away with some of these things. And that kills our creativity. And we just talked about how creativity is a means for life. So that's another kind of piece to consider. Okay, so now we've gotten to the very, very end of Psycho-Cybernetics. So he labels this as the best self-image of all. So finally, life in and of itself is the ultimate source. It has many forms of expressions and channels and manifestations. Let us not limit ourselves by accepting life in our own feelings of unworthiness, right? With all of our inherent gifts, it is an insult to our Creator to turn our backs upon these gifts and say that His creation, the creation of the human, is not capable, worthy, or important. Essentially, as a very spiritual man, Dr. Maltz is saying here that because we've been born with these gifts, we have these expressions, we have these channels that we can use our gifts that we have. Why wouldn't we want to take full opportunity in exercising that to the highest? The most adequate and realistic self-image of all is to convince yourself that you're made in the image of God. You're made in the image of creation. You're made in the image of the universal source. So that to me says, because we are born and life itself is the ultimate source, we need to look to engage all of this information from the book, from other books, to say, hey, we're only here a short time in the grand scheme of things. We need to actively engage ourselves to be able to do the things that we want to do. And there's an incredible reward that goes along with that, and a lot of people you can positively impact. So, with life being the source, life is also the adaptive energy. That is, life in and of itself is a privilege that we humans get to engage with, and a way for us to achieve our goals that we want to do. These adaptations of life to deal with problems in our environment are almost infinite, and there's no point in continuing to suffer through these life stresses, both positive and negative, if we don't appreciate this adaptive energy along with nature. Would we not, as goal strivers, also need to become adaptive and receive adaptive energy to pursue our goals? So as we stated earlier about how life itself can be a form of stress and life itself is a form of source, we need to work towards these things to get a maximized usage out of all the types of energy that we can do to live longer and to maximize our years. Okay, so when we have tomorrow to look forward to, a life that is full of joy and anticipation, when we have projects we're excited to work on, we retrieve more life energy, looking and feeling younger as we age. So I know that wasn't the cleanest conclusion of our book series in terms of how this was delivered. However, I threw a lot at you, and I hope that you can really understand and appreciate these different tactics, tools, and everything that we have covered here in Psycho-Cybernetics to really lean in and live a better life. So thank you guys again so much for continuing this journey with me, finishing this journey with me. We will get on to another book series, but to all the subscribers out there, I really appreciate it. Cheers. Thank you guys.